الله عليك يا حبيب الله، صلى الله عليك يا مولاي وابن مولاي يا أبا عبد الله الحسين، يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة، غريب يا مظلوم كربلاء، يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. بقلبي أوقد الذات الوقود رزايا الطفل ذات النهود، شباب بالطفوف قضى شهيدا، يشيب لرزيه رأس الوليد، شبيه محمد خلقا وخلقا، وفي مشي وفي لفتات جيد، وفي نطق لسان الوحي منه، يرتله بقرآن مجيد، وفي وجه يفوق البدر نورا، وفي سمائه آثر السجود، فما أدري أهوني معزي علي المرتضى بابن الشهيد، فوا نفسي ذابي وجدا وحزنا، ويا عيني بحمر الدمع جودي، لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. صلى على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
ثانية على حب الزهراء عليه السلام.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
ثالثة على حب صاحب العصر والزمان بأعلى الأصوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Tonight is the 9th night of Moharram, and tonight we're commemorating bi'awnillah ta'ala the 2 moons of Karbala, Ali al-Akbar alayhi salam and Al-Qasim. The two youth that represent to all of us the true meaning of youth, youthhood, or being a youth, or being a productive individual in our society. The two youth that showed that it's not only for the men to get up and rise against what they believe in, rather it's for each and every one of us, no matter the age, the social status, race, or gender. They showed that each and every one of us has the power to change dynasties and empires, even if we are at the youthful ages. Rather, the ages that, or the age of the youth, should be utilized in preparing ourselves for Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman, spreading his message and standing up for what we believe in. For those are the ages of energy, and those are the ages where productivity should be at its peak. They taught us, my brothers and sisters, that although us as youth, we have a lot of inclinations, our energy takes us left and right. With all of that energy and all of these inclinations, there's never an excuse to disobey. And instead of putting that energy towards what is haram, if the youth focuses that energy towards what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants and desires, they can reach the highest levels of spirituality before even getting to the age of 30. And so you see, for 1,400 years, we come every single year and we dedicate a day for a young man that was no more than 13 or 14 by the name of Al-Qasim ibn al-Hasan. A man or a boy that did not even get married yet. A boy that exemplified for each and every one of us and all of the men what it meant to be a true mu'min, not just a youth. And we also commemorate Ali al-Akbar alayhi salam. Some other riwayat say he was the eldest son of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. A man who, although not in the eldest years of his life, was able to take a stance and stand in front of the empire of his time, and not just stand in front of that empire, was able to destroy it by the sword in his hand. He stood in front of that man who stood in front of him in the battlefield. You will see in the majlis, proud of who he was and what he believed in. And he destroyed him and killed him, defending his father, Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Returned to the tent and said to Abu Abdullah al-Atash, قَدْ قَتَلَنِي. Thirst has killed me. And I can truly say, if it wasn't for the thirst of Ali al-Akbar alayhi salam, he would have done what Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam did to the armies just 3 days before, when he got the water and returned it actually to the camp of the youth and the children, the children and the women. If it wasn't for the thirst, Ali al-Akbar alayhi salam would have won over all of the men on the battlefield. And would have ended the battle of Karbala, because he focused his energy into what was needed at the point in time. And did not say, I'm a youth, let me roam free, and I can focus my energy somewhere else. On this point, my brothers and sisters, we want to introduce a topic that is specific, or at least has to do mostly with the youth. And it is the topic that most of our youth try and take their energies away from, and focus their energies on what is counterproductive to this topic, to this idea. And that is the idea of hijab. Now when I say the word hijab, the first thing that comes into our minds is the sisters. When the reality is the hijab came down for the men before it came down to the women. And the concept of hijab is gender neutral and not gender specific. Gender neutral and not gender specific. In other words, it does not pertain to one specific gender. Rather, it is an encompassing topic that is to be spoken about for both genders, focusing more on this side of the room than that side of the room, and we will see how. Why am I choosing to speak about hijab when it comes to Ali al-Akbar and al-Qasim? It's because they exemplify what it means to be a youth. And they practiced hijab. And when they stood up on the battlefield, they stood up for those things or for those topics or for those ideas that pertain to them specifically as well. And that is the hijab. Each and every individual had something that they stood for on the day of Ashura. Al-Hur stood for loyalty and repentance. Al-Abbas stood up for brotherhood. Zainab alayha salam stood up for strength and womanhood. As-Sajjad stood up for Imama as a whole. Al-Qasim and Ali al-Akbar stood up for this idea of hijab. And so tonight, my brothers and sisters, there's a long azah, there's a long majlis, because we're going to be reading the majlis of both of them, Ali al-Akbar and al-Qasim. So again, we want to ask one question tonight. And hopefully try and answer it to the best of our abilities. And I ask both the brothers and also the sisters specifically, please pay attention for this majlis. Inshallah, we can benefit as much as we can from this majlis. Wallahu sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
The question we want to ask, my brothers and sisters, tonight, the only question is this. When it comes to the ayat, or the ayah, speaking about hijab, what is the tafsir of that ayah? What is the full meaning behind this ayah? If we come and we understand just that one verse, we will see that we're going to get a full-on understanding of what hijab truly means in our society and how to implement it perfectly. So, we begin with the ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This is in Surah An-Nur. He says, قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ وَيَحْفَظُوا فُرُوجَهُمْ ذَلِكَ أَزْكَى لَهُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ خَبِيرًا بِمَا يَصْنَعُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins. He says, O Prophet of Allah, speak to the believing men. Speak to the believing men. And say to them that they lower their gaze and they cover their bodies, specifically the private parts. ذَلِكَ أَزْكَى لَهُمْ. He says, that is pure for them, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what they do, knows of the actions, whether they show those actions in the outside or they do it secretively. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows of their actions, he says. When you come to the ayah, you come to realize one thing, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when speaking about hijab, He begins with who? The men or the women? He begins with the men. He begins with the men. Now, to answer this question as to why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins with the men, you have to understand the fundamentals behind hijab itself as a concept. Because a lot of us think that the hijab is just something that a woman puts on her head. But what the reality is, the hijab is a much broader topic than that. Let's get an understanding of what hijab means. Let's begin. When it comes linguistically, the word hijab, means to cover or conceal something. To cover or conceal. And when they use the words hajaba an, or hajaba anhu, or hajabat anhu, it means that this person covered something from someone else. Also implying the broader meaning to protect. Also implying a secondary meaning to protect. That's linguistically. Now when you come forward and take the linguistic meaning and apply it to the religious meaning, you find our ulama alayhim ridwanullah have come forward and gave us this definition for the religious meaning behind hijab. This is what they said. They said, the religious hijab is a spiritual covering, a spiritual protection that an individual, men or women, puts on their hearts to protect themselves from the potential dangers of social interaction, whether that social interaction is between the man or the woman or the man, or them amongst themselves. I'm going to reiterate that one more time. I'm not going to give you the huge definition. Let's condense it a little bit. Al-hijab is a spiritual protection that an individual has on their hearts that is to protect them from those potential dangers of social interaction. What do I mean by dangers of social interactions? What kind of dangers are we talking about? The danger that we are talking about is the danger to the soul. And in the days before, what did we say the danger of the soul was? The danger to the soul, what is it? The harmful effects on the soul, what are they? Come on, guys. We said they are the haram action, the sins. We said the haram holds such a degree of harm that what? That a person has to stay away from it, just like the poison, remember that? The dangers that we are speaking about is the sin. And so the hijab is that spiritual protection from the sin. But what kind of sin are we talking about? Are we talking about lying? Not necessarily at this point in time, or not directly. Are we talking about other methods of masalan haram, like for example, haram gains? Buying and selling wine, buying and selling pork, for example? No. We're talking about some other types of haram, specific types of haram. What kinds of haram? Haram that arise from social interaction. Whether they are between males and females, or between males themselves even, and women themselves, doesn't matter, any type of social interaction. That is what the hijab means. طيب, we have this understanding of hijab, we have this definition of hijab. We come in and we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins with the men. Why does He begin with the men? Because the end result or the end goal of hijab is to protect societies and to keep these values that we believe in, the Islamic values of social interaction, alive, and to keep fisq and fujur, hypocrisy, and non-piousness in a sense, from making its way into our societies. In other words, here let me make it very clear. The sole goal of hijab is to protect societies from those sins that arise from social interaction. From zina, wal-'iyadh billah, so adultery. From hurting one side or the other. From the women being hurt from the men or vice versa. From all of these different diseases that we see prevalent in the Western world and even now in the Eastern world. That is the sole goal of hijab. And so it's as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, if we all of us want this goal to be a reality, this dream to be a reality, who should start in the society? Who should we speak to first? Is it the man or the woman? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the first group of people that we need to speak to when it comes to keeping our societies clean are the men. Why? Because when we understand the type of hijab the men have, we will understand why He started with the men. When He came to the hijab of the men, what did He say the hijab of the man was? يَغُضُّ سَنْتِ يَغُضُّ أَبْصَارَهُمْ. That they lower their gaze. That is the hijab of the man. That is the spiritual protection of the man. That he lowers his gaze. Why? Why? We'll answer that question why, but I feel like we're kind of sleeping. So sallu ala Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Why is it that He began with the men and told them غضوا أبصارهم? It's because when it comes to social interaction, you find that the man in his innate nature is always on the hunt. This is the way it is, on the hunt for a spouse. Always on the hunt, instinctually. They're always on the hunt, and the first thing that comes to the man's mind, whether we like it or not, when they see a woman, the first thing that the mind is trained to do is go to the physical aspect, not the sexual aside, just the physical. Where you find a man can be walking in the streets, a woman that is not dressed properly, would walk right by him, the first thing that happens to the eyes of the man is go to that woman's body. Whether they want to or not is something that they can't control. That's why it is said, Al-ula lak wa thani alayk, the first look is yours. The second one is a sin. That means the first look that we cannot control. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that is not controllable. When you turn away, you turn back, that is haram. And so we find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, seeing this, He said, the man is always the aggressor. 9 times out of 10, you find the man is always the aggressor, even in today's modern society. Even today's modern society. Men, it's a competition between men who can get the girl's number. That's reality. It's a competition. Men are always the aggressors. It's hardly ever that this side is the aggressor. It's hardly ever that this side is coming over. It's always that side is going to that side. And so, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saw that the man in the equation is always going to be the aggressor, then start with the aggressor and tame the aggressor, and you've solved half the problem. Do not go to the woman who's always on the defense and tell her put her guards up, build a wall, and then we'll talk about the person that is coming and trying to break that wall down. No. Al-wiqaya afdalu min al-ilaj. Protection from the very beginning is better than having a problem and then solving it with walls. Do we see how it works? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala began with the men and said, غُضُّوا أَبْصَارَكُمْ. Why did He speak about the eyes in the beginning? Because my brothers and sisters, the eyes are the gateway into the heart. And before anything, a man notices the female, or the male notices the female with the eye. And that is the first thing that lays, if you want to say that is the first mode of attention that lays itself on a woman, the eyesight. And that's why we find in many of the ahadith that we spoke about the days before, we find the Imams alayhimus salam come forward and say that the person who makes his eyesight in his eyes, or the sight, if he limits it to his eyes, it's not like the person who has his sight in his heart. In other words, Jannah is for the one who keeps his sight in his heart and does not only understand sight to be in the eyes, does not let his eyes roam around. Because as we said, the eyes are the gateway into the heart. And what is fed into the glass, as we said in the nights before, the gateway is the eyes. And so if the human being is changed and molded, if the heart of the human being is dirtied or becomes pure, then understand it only became pure or dirty from what this person is letting in through the eyes, the ears, the other methods of understanding. And that's why our Imams alayhimus salam, Sallallahu Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And that's why our Imams alayhimus salam narrated these ahadith. It is narrated by, I believe,